Let's join Heather and our school psychologist, Lathrell Eiler, as they talk about this week's high leverage practice.
Welcome to Little Bits of TLC, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of education. Join our host, Heather Volchko, as this season we focus on high leverage practices, HLPs. Each episode will examine a different HLP, essential strategies designed to enhance teaching and improve outcomes across various educational settings. These practices focus on collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, behavioral support, and instruction, benefiting all K-12 students. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired, because this season is all about mastering the HLPs. This is Little Bits of TLC. Looking for something that actually fits your life? TLC University is here for that. Each week, we spotlight something different. A webinar with real-world insights, a hangout-style interview, and a hands-on workshop or a Q&A where we answer your questions. It's flexible, it's self-paced, and most come with CEUs. So whether you're looking to grow, reflect, or just listen in, there's something here for you. And it's all in one place. university.thresholdlearning.org. That's where you'll find show notes, professional blogs, a full catalog of ACE-accredited courses, and downloadable resources. It all just keeps growing. So whether you're walking the dog, commuting, or taking a breather between the daily grind, TLC University meets you where you are. Head to university.thresholdlearning.org and check out what's new this week. See you then.
Conduct functional behavioral assessments to develop individual student behavior support plans. Creating individual behavior plans is a central role of all special educators. Key to successful plans is to conduct a functional behavioral assessment, or FBA, anytime behavior is chronic, intense, or impedes learning. A comprehensive FBA results in a hypothesis about the function of the student's problem behavior. Once the function is determined, a behavior intervention plan is developed that A, teaches the student a pro-social replacement behavior that will serve the same or similar function, B, alters the environment to make the replacement behavior more efficient and effective than the problem behavior, C, alters the environment to no longer allow the problem behavior to access the previous outcome, and D, includes ongoing data collection to monitor progress.
This week, we're talking about high leverage practice number 10, conducting functional behavioral assessments to develop individual student behavior support plans. Lathrell, I know you and I had this conversation last season, and this season, I'm really curious to see where we can kind of take this conversation in the next level. So all about students with emotional and behavioral challenges. A lot of times this can get really messy. So for you, when you're running, FBAs or doing behavior planning, specifically with students with emotional and behavioral challenges, what does this practice look like for you?
Well, when I conduct FBA for children that has the emotional behavioral component, it is really important to do a lot of research. And when I say research, it's like going in and seeing the kid in different areas. That means you have to leave your office. It's one of those things where you're going to have to go to the gym. You're going to have to go to the cafeteria. You're going to go to the computer lab. You're going to go to all these different places, the playground. If you're lucky, you can get on a trip. I mean, you can try those different things. But you really want to look at the kids in different areas and different times of the day and different parts of their life to see how they are really functioning in the day-to-day. You want to see certain things. You want to see their relationships with other teachers, other kids, unstructured versus structured areas, classes that the student always seem to have a problem in versus classes they don't seem to ever have a problem in, their good days versus their bad days, the afternoon versus morning, when they come off the bus or when they get dropped off at school. You just want to look at all these different components. And sometimes, realistically, there may not be time to do all those things, but you want to do it as much as possible. And if you really are in like the setting I'm in, I have a classroom within a general population school. So they are integrated into regular classrooms. And you have to really go into those classrooms and see. You have to talk to the different teachers. You have to also know the personality of the teachers you're dealing with as well. So you can see what those real interactions are. Is it really the child, or it might be a adult issue? You never know. So you really want to do a lot of research in regards to, how this child is functioning across different areas and in different contexts and see how they are. And you want to see if there's any trends in the behavior in regards to how they're acting. One time I remember watching a child and every time, she had, her cycle, she would get suspended out of school. And it really took some deep diving because one, they didn't bring it up to me that this child was being suspended out or, she was in detention in the afternoon. And I was like, okay, so why is she in detention again? Like, what's going on? And then I started noticing the trend that she was having the same time of the month. It always seemed to be the same teachers that would seem to kind of pick at her. It was very interesting to see how it played out. And it's really, she was just moody. It was just that time of the month for her. And it became a thing of, well, is this really something that we need a behavior plan? Or we just need to get her a little bit of medicine to offset what's going on. So when you have experiences like that, that's when you know that your observation, as well as data collection, looking for trends, looking for patterns of behavior, and try to really figure out what's going on top of the research you've done in the paperwork to develop the FBA. So when you know you're working with that type of population where they have that type of behaviors and emotional components that's mixed together, you really just need to put all that energy and effort into making sure you have as much information so you can come to a good conclusion. I won't say the best conclusion, but a good conclusion on why this child is acting this way.
I love that example that you're sharing though, because I think so often I run into scenarios where like, oh well, they're just acting a fool, or oh they just want attention, or they just don't want to do their work, or they like there are these easy functions that are tossed out pretty frequently. But that example shows that it was not just that. There were some other things that were going on that you meet those needs, and all of a sudden the behavior is no longer there. Like, how do you hold that perspective? Or like, how do you see more than just, oh, they're just attention seeking. Oh, they just want power and control, right? Like, how do you kind of push beyond that, functionally speaking?
Well, you have to kind of check yourself because especially with particular population, they will emotionally get to you. They will find your weaknesses and they'll get on this everything that irritates you about how things shouldn't be. They will find a way to touch on that with you. So you have to kind of remove your personal feelings and really look through it through a professional eye. You have to say and really remind yourself that they're communicating something to you. What are they communicating? What is the trend? Is it because they didn't sleep last night? Is it because mom and dad were fighting at home or there was something going on in the community that was upsetting them? Their friend didn't talk to them. Like I said, I'm in a middle school. There's a lot of relationship issues that are going on that it's just like, are y'all serious? Today y'all not friends, but tomorrow y'all will be. Or this morning y'all not friends, this afternoon after lunch, after everybody has eaten, everybody's good again. So you have to like really put that professional lens on to really look at what's going on with the kids and, really take a step back and take out the emotional piece to it. Yes, you want to care about the kids, but you also want to make sure that you are looking at it in the most concrete and I hate to say for lack of a better word, sane way of looking at them and really saying, okay, what are they really trying to tell me? So you just have to take that step back and just kind of remove the emotional piece from it because again, they will draw you in, but it's they're communicating something, so you try to get all the like the bare minimum things out the way, things that you know you could easily fix. Things like, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you tired? Do you not feel well? And when you things like if they don't feel well, is that a part of their trend? Is that part of their pattern? Do they always get headaches before math? Do they always get, they don't feel well because of, right before gym but recess comes and they're great, that type of thing. So are you seeing those type of patterns? And then you can kind of dig a little bit more to figure out, oh, is it something with the teachers, something with the class? They don't like that particular activity they're doing in gym, but at recess they get to see their friend and just sit back and talk. If they're not really a sports person or they're really like athletics or doing those type of physical activities, you're going to see some behaviors because of that. Especially when you have teachers that are really like you have to do A, B, C, and D in order to get a grade in this class. So again, you're looking at and observing in different areas to find out what the patterns are, what the trends are, and just kind of taking it from there.
Well, I appreciate how you're saying, like, actually look at the kid, their situation, like everything that's going on with them. that's really what's informing us what's going on. It's not just what we see kind of at face value, which I know is what a lot of us, especially when we're just coming up against it, and especially when they are finding every potential button of ours to push, right? Like we are just going to take what we're seeing, and that's going to be our assumption, and we're just going to run with that. But I think even within behavior planning, a lot of times I'll come across behavior plans that are really written more with like a compliance bend, or like if this kid did this, then my life as an adult or as a staff member would be easier. And they're not necessarily always written for like, but what skills does this kid need?
Mhm.
So I'm curious if you're holding that perspective, which I know you always do, around like what's really going on with this student. I mean, I think the natural next step is, so then what do they need so that they can show up successfully, confidently, all of those student things. Like how do you drive your behavior planning to make sure that it really is student aligned and not just like compliance or staff aligned?
Mhm. Well, I know like years ago, wait, a long time ago, there was a lot of behavior plans did not have a skill set goal in it, but now that seems to be a more of a trend now. And so basically, for pretty much for every goal they have a skill set they have to learn that's implemented in there. And I think that's a very good trend because a lot of times we're stopping the behavior, even though we know what the reasons for the behavior, we're not addressing that. So one of the things I usually try to encourage other people to really focus on is communication. Because their behavior is telling us something, they need to verbally, if they can, or some way, somehow communicate to us what's going on. And especially as the kid gets older, they need to be able to advocate for themselves. That's the first step going into being able to advocate. So having a skill set to teach them how to address their needs and things like that, talk to people about what's going on, and actually reminding the adults who are implementing these plans, you need to listen. It's very important. They're communicating to us, and they might have. And I've seen where a student has actually said, "I told them this." They wasn't listening. So they are communicating, but because no one was listening, no one was taking them seriously, nobody took that into account, they resulted to behaviors. And so, when you start looking at what the child is telling you or the student is telling you, you need to take that into account and making sure that they have a way to communicate that. They have a way of addressing that need independently. Even if you have to teach them the skill set prior, if they get to a point where they can do it independently, that's where you want them to go. So, like I said, a lot of FBA and behavior plans now incorporate that skill set of teaching them a new skill to address that behavior so that we can lessen that behavior or even get rid of it altogether. So, I think that's moving in a good direction, and, as long as people are implementing it and implementing it consistently, you will see a change in the behaviors.
Well, you're talking about, I mean, self advocacy. In order to do that, there's an aspect of functional communication that is so necessary. But this is also a population that tends to maybe speak their mind in ways that people don't always want to hear.
Mhm,
So, for you, when you're looking at like, how do I help students build skills in self advocacy when maybe they are advocating for themselves in ways that people just don't want to hear? How do you walk teams through maybe kind of putting some of their own things aside so that they can actually receive what's being communicated, and then we can sort of like shape that self advocacy into something that then adults are maybe more able to hear? Because I run into that quite a bit with this population, where they're very vocal and they will let you know where you stand and what they think, but it isn't always received from staff, sometimes just because of how it's communicated. And so, like, how do you walk teams through being able to actually listen to what's being communicated, and then continue to partner with that student through developing that skill into a way that then anyone would be able to hear, understand, and then really meet their needs?
Well, for me, part of teaching a skill set is that you have to model it. So if you are one of those people who you do as I say, not as I do, this is going to be a very hard population to work with because
Oh, yeah.
they're watching you more than you're watching them. So you have to be mindful that you're at work, you're there to do a job, and you are there to also model how to interact with people. And even if you have a bad day, you can explain that to the student. Yeah, I was having a bad day. I was not my best self. I'm going to come back and do better. And this is what I need you to do. Yes, you had a bad day yesterday, you had a bad morning, but you can turn that around. You saw how I did this yesterday. You saw how I turned it around. So again, you have to do some of that modeling for them. You have to also remember this is your job. This is part of your job. This is what you signed up for. So you need to do some self-reflection on the skill sets that you might be lacking as an adult, as a professional, and work on those so you can actually teach someone else how to do it. And then as you're teaching yourself, you can teach that skill set to the student. A lot of students, they like to curse. I like to use colorful language or sentence enhancers myself, but I know I'm in a professional setting and I can't use that language. So if I'm talking to a student that's cursing, one of the things I tell them, how would you like if I would curse at you? You'll be upset. You'll be mad. You wouldn't want to listen. So I need for you to tell me what's going on in a converse without, voice without cursing at me. And you have to kind of appeal to some of that logic. And you also need timing is very important with this population too. Now, so we just to be honest, you can't have this type of conversation with them when they're upset and in the moment of being enraged with whatever happened. So you may just need to de-escalate in that moment and then have that conversation when they're in a calmer state where you can actually kind of get through to them and have them understand what's going on. But again, this is another skill set that they need. What do you need to do before becoming so heightened that you cannot communicate properly? So again, all these are skill sets that you need to teach. They come at different times when you're teaching them. They're not going to get it within 2 weeks. They're not going to get it within a day. It might take them a year or 2 years to even get some of these skill sets down. So we have to remember we're professionals. They just got here. They're learning. They don't have a whole lot of life experience. At least usually if they do, it's usually not a positive life experience. So we're trying to show them something different and we're trying to show them a better way to have their needs met. And that's the kind of mindset you have to go in, even if you have to take time out for yourself and take a step back to regroup and then come back and address the issue. So those are some of the strategies I would use to talk to staff about.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for showing just how complex this is, right? No human wants to ever just be boiled down to that thing you caught from me, that one moment in passing, and all of a sudden that has defined, who I am or why I'm acting the way I'm acting. But it also is so collaborative. We are in a community. It doesn't matter if you're holding positions of authority or not, that we are still having a collaborative, collective experience. And what I'm doing is impacting you, what you're doing is impacting me. And just calling that forward, especially through behavior planning, just makes so much sense and works so incredibly well with this population. So thank you. Thank you for showing that it's more than just what you're catching at face value. Function is a lot deeper and based on a whole bunch of different things. And then behavior planning, it's a lot of practice what we preach. Whatever we're asking from them, we should be showing them as well. And we can walk that through as the adults in the room as they're trying to figure it out as well. So thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise on this topic this week.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Working in a self-contained, alternative education, therapeutic, or correctional classroom? Project Onward is a 6-strand cohort-based project designed to help you build a strong, structured program for complex students who need extra specialized support. You'll get practical tools to set up clear routines, strengthen engagement, manage behavior, and plan instruction that actually fits the splintered needs of your students. By the end, you'll walk away with a complete, ready-to-use program that has been adapted to your local needs. Led by Heather Bolchko, Lathrell Eisler, Jonathan Barbario, and Manny Wasias, Project Onward blends proven strategies with vetted experience, helping you move forward with confidence. If you're creating something from the ground up or looking to update what you've got, this project gives you the structure and clarity to do it well. If you support students with low-incident needs, Project Base helps you design a consistent classroom built just for them. And if you're working in general ed or resource settings with behavioral challenges, Project Thrive gives you the tools to work with, not against, the flow of your classroom. Visit university.thresholdlearning.org to meet the team and get started today. Let's move onward, together.
Functional behavioral assessments, or FBAs, play a crucial role in understanding and addressing student problem behaviors, often required under IDEA regulations. These assessments investigate what triggers and maintains problematic behaviors. They use both indirect methods like rating scales, interviews, and reviewing archival data, and direct methods where trained observers watch during challenging times. From this data, educators form hypotheses about the behavior's function, framed in a format like, When certain conditions arise, the student engages in specific problem behaviors to achieve or avoid certain outcomes. For example, if a worksheet with extensive writing triggers a student to act out to avoid the task, the hypothesis might read, when faced with a lengthy worksheet, the student will act out to avoid the task. With this hypothesis, a behavior support plan is created to address the identified function. The plan should teach a pro-social behavior that achieves the same or similar outcome as the problem behavior, like getting attention or avoiding a task. It also involves adjusting the classroom environment to reinforce the new behavior effectively and ensuring that the problem behavior doesn't lead to the same outcome. For instance, if a student calls out instead of raising their hand, the teacher would ignore the call out and instead recognize students who raise their hands, reinforcing the desired behavior. Understanding that all behavior is a form of communication is crucial for effective teaching. A skilled special educator armed with this insight is adept at interpreting student behaviors and making informed decisions to prevent the inadvertent reinforcement of undesirable actions or the imposition of unjust discipline. This competency is at the heart of the functional behavioral assessment, or FBA, process and the subsequent behavior support plan, or BSP. Conducting an FBA is a collaborative endeavor involving input from colleagues, HLP1, and families, HLP3, through meetings, HLP2, and drawing on a variety of data sources, HLP4. Effective educators continuously consider the antecedents of student behavior, both immediate and long-term triggers, along with how to describe and interpret behaviors and the consequences sustaining them. They leverage this comprehensive data and feedback to craft a BSP that aims to replace problematic behaviors with more suitable ones, ensuring these new behaviors are adaptable across different settings. When teachers effectively conduct functional behavioral assessments, FBAs, to develop individualized behavior support plans, BSPs, they start by considering the classic functions of behavior. These functions include seeking social attention, gaining access to tangible or preferred activities, escaping or avoiding aversive tasks, avoiding individuals, and seeking internal stimulation. A comprehensive FBA should capture all essential components. This means clearly describing the problem behavior, identifying events and situations that predict it, pinpointing consequences that maintain it, formulating a hypothesis about the triggers and supports for the behavior, and collecting direct observation data to back up the hypothesis. Using the antecedent behavior consequence, or ABC, model is crucial for developing a solid hypothesis statement. With this data, teachers can select an appropriate replacement behavior based on the identified function of the problem behavior and creating a tailored BSP. The plan should involve explicit teaching and reinforcement of the replacement behavior, while also making environmental modifications to prevent the problem behavior from recurring. Ensuring these modifications make the replacement behavior more effective and efficient is key to increasing its likelihood of use. Ongoing data collection and progress monitoring are essential, with regular meetings with stakeholders to adjust the intervention as needed. For school leaders, supporting teachers in the effective execution of functional behavioral assessments, or FBAs, and behavior support plans, BSPs, is a critical task. The process, though varying by district and school, thrives on a strong, team-oriented approach. Leaders should focus on building a cohesive team that includes staff members skilled in engaging with students who struggle with relationships. Establishing these pre-existing support teams can significantly enhance the FBA process. Equipping educators with the necessary skills through targeted instruction, professional development, and coaching is essential. This training should cover the entire FBA process, from leading FBA meetings to developing and implementing BSPs. Ongoing feedback and support are equally important. Leaders should actively assist teachers in utilizing data sources effectively throughout the FBA process and help them develop and use data collection tools. Regular check-ins can ensure that educators receive the additional support they need for effective progress monitoring and data collection. When it comes to addressing intensive, challenging behaviors, FBA-based intervention planning stands out as a robust and well-supported approach. While there isn't a rigid checklist of practices for conducting a comprehensive FBA, research consistently points to key elements that are crucial for its effectiveness. It's worth noting that the current standards for evidence-based practices, such as those from the What Works Clearinghouse, often emphasize multiple randomized control trials. However, both the Institute of Education Sciences and the Council for Exceptional Children recognize the value of single-subject research, which is commonly used in FBA-based intervention studies. The evidence from these studies meets the minimal standards for being considered evidence-based, reflecting a strong foundation in research and practice. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Join us next week when Heather sits down with our leadership coach for building leaders, Mary Mangione, to talk about our next high leverage practice.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, consider dropping a like and follow @Threshold Learning TLC on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you like our show, share the podcast with your colleagues. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to promote the podcast. Let them know that they can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that they catch their podcast. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there. Attention educators pursuing behavior analysis certification and universities preparing them for success. Supervision with TLC offers 100% remote fieldwork supervision designed specifically for school-based professionals. Educators can earn their hours right in their schools without leaving their classroom, all while being supported by experienced BCBAs who understand the realities of education. With month-to-month scheduling, affordable rates, and both live video and asynchronous chat, our fieldwork supervision model is designed to fit into your life, not the other way around. We also invite universities to enhance their graduate programs in partnership with our team of practicing school-based BCBAs. Our fieldwork supervision model keeps students on track for certification by helping them connect their practice to all exam domains so that they can confidently pass the exam. Explore more at university.thresholdlearning.org/supervision or email supervision@thresholdlearning.org to connect. Supervision with TLC, where educators grow into behavior analysts.